America needs a tidal wave of the old-time religion.
I have sinned against you.
How dare you!
We have no need to doubt God.
The harlot Babylon is preparing the nations to receive the Antichrist.
I didn't even build that house with money from the church. I built it with money from my book.
I don't make this stuff up.
Repenting of your sin.
It is a moral issue.
They got together and swore a pact to the devil.
I just enjoy seeing people worship, praising God.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to
Believe It
or Not,
the show where we believe it,
or maybe we don't.
Probably not. I didn't. Did you?
No.
Dear listener, did you?
Did you listen?
Just the one listener. Did you? I guess not. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
moving on.
Moving on. Today, I thought we'd go home.
Home is
going
where the
home.
heart is.
Home is where the heart is. We're going back to my hometown.
Oh,
it's been a while since I've actually been to my hometown because of COVID. But my hometown is a place called Brockville, Ontario.
Oh man, we're going right back to where it all began.
Right where it all began. I was born at the Brockville General Hospital.
The inception of Trevor, the conception of Trevor.
Mm-hmm. I was conceived in a log cabin.
Were you?
Yes.
Actually?
Yeah, well, like my parents lived in a log cabin, like a log house built in the 1850s. Mm-hmm. They bought this.
They for sure did it there when you were made?
Unless I was made on vacation.
That's true.
But I'm pretty sure. And then that house got arsoned and burnt down.
Wait, arsoned?
They think it was arson. What? It was a historical building, and this guy had been driving my dad off the road.
What?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on telling this story.
What? You can't lead in with the house got burned down and a guy kept trying to drive my dad off the road and they think it was arson.
So the story goes that this guy was obsessed with my mom and wanted to get with my mom and hated my dad, and then eventually he got mad and burned my house down.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I guess my mom was a catch. But we're not here to talk about that. I keep dropping bombs in these like last episode talking about my grandma slipping the tongue. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry.
That's true. Yeah, I was just gonna say that's like high five to your mom, though, man.
Yeah, it's true.
And I guess your dad too. High five to your dad.
Yeah, high five to them. So I went to high school. Mm-hmm. So I'm just telling my whole life story. So I went to high school at a small high school in a small town outside of Brockville. And the high schools in the area, they each kind of had their own like reputation. So the one I went to was like the Hick, the redneck school. All the farmers went there. I lived out in the country a little bit out of Brockville. And so I had the choice whether I could go to high school in Brockville or I could go to the small town Athens District High School. And I decided to go to Athens District High School for some reason, and I got bullied to shit. But I went to the redneck school. My brothers went to TIS, which was the better school. And then there was
Thousand Island Secondary School?
Yeah, Thousand Island Secondary School. That's where your other podcast partner went.
Right.
So just so everybody knows, Damien's also on Spooked, and his other podcast partner has the same hometown as me.
We've all been simmering around that area for some reason. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I guess we're drawn to the evil. And then there was BCI, which was, we always thought it was the prep school. It was it was still a public high school, but it was more the artsy school. And then that the Big Cock Institute?
Brockville Collegiate Institute.
Oh, sorry. I haven't been to school in a while. So.
All right. And then we had St. Mary's, which was basically like the Catholic high school.
Right.
And then there was GCC.
No more
yeah, no more in it. And then there was GCC, Grenville Christian College, which was the rich kids' school.
Okay.
That's how it was.
Is that
known.
what we're talking about today?
That's what we're talking about today. Yeah.
Oh no.
So how I understood Grenville Christian College was we were always taught that it wasn't really a Christian school. Like that was in the name, but it was more like a college prep school. It was more like a it was a boarding school, but it was a boarding school for like, the rich people from all over Canada and a lot of international students.
I feel like this feels more like how boarding schools in the State or in the UK kind of are, right? Yeah. Where they have that kind of religious feel, but it's not like a straight up Christian, like it's just more part of the routine of the school than it is the actual kind of belief system of the school. If that makes sense. Is that
and that's what everyone assumed it was.
Right.
It was affiliated with the Anglican Church of Ontario, the Anglican Diocese of Ontario.
Yeah.
And the headmaster was an Anglican priest. So the headmaster was a guy named Charles Farnsworth.
Like in Futurama.
Yeah, like in Futurama.
Is that his name? Isn't it Charles Farnsworth?
Is it Charles? I know it's Farnsworth, but no, it's Hubert, isn't it? No, Hubert's his kid, his clone.
I can't remember. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, you gotta.
No, it is Professor Hubert J. Farnsworth.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. But yeah, actually, another thing that they were known for is they did a hot air balloon festival every year.
A hot air balloon festival.
Yeah, so they hosted this hot air balloon festival every year, and that was pretty cool. Like that was yeah, and because like Brockville skies would just fill with like all these really cool shaped balloons.
Yeah,
and
I've never been to a hot air balloon festival. I don't know if it's that we just didn't have rich schools like that, or I was just never around when they had them.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. It was also it was a rich school thing, and so they were involved kind of with my church. So my church did different things with GCC, and one thing was to bring Charles Farnsworth in, and he did talks with like my youth group, and he did talks with like our college and career group and stuff like that. So I met him a number of times.
Yeah,
not knowing that he was a creep, just a piece of shit.
Great.
And
I mean, anytime we start talking about schools, especially like private schools and things like that, you kind of get an idea what it's probably going to be about. I mean, I think 9 times out of 10, it's something to do with the people in power, diddling kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not happy about it, but I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, basically, so the school started, the building was built in 1918.
Okay.
But it was a Catholic school at that time called St. Mary's College. And it was a prep school, but it was run by the Redemptionist Order of Roman Catholics. And then in 1969, it was sold to a group of people, and they changed the name to Berean Christian Schools, and it was meant to be a training facility for missionaries.
Berean, what's Berean? Is that something specific, or?
That's actually a good question. I don't know. It probably had something to do with
how do you spell that?
Berean. Oh yeah, it's a reference to Acts 17.
Berea were more noble than those in the Thessalonica? What the fuck?
So basically the idea was that it was about missions and okay.
They were the city of Berea, also known in the Bible as Berea. Okay, cool. Taken up by certain Protestant groups. Great.
Yeah.
So they changed it. They made it into like a missionary school for a while.
Yeah, and then they decided, no, we're going to go back to the prep school idea, like St. Mary's was, but we're going to call it Grenville Christian College. Grenville's just the county we lived in.
Right.
So there's no big meaning there. We lived in Leeds and Grenville were kind of the two counties there, and they always, So they started doing the prep school thing again. In 1973, they got involved with this religious movement that was based out in Cape Cod in Massachusetts. They were struggling to get the school started and get the school really going. And so Charles Farnsworth was made a headmaster. He was not an Anglican priest before this. He was just a teacher at the school, but because he was headmaster and because it was under the Anglican umbrella, he was made an Anglican priest.
Oh, so he really had no qualifications as far as that side of things go. Were there always like qualifications for priesthood and things like that? Or were you kind of just able to start preaching and be a priest?
Yeah, with the Anglican priests, like priesthood, my friend is an Anglican priest, and he went through a lot of schooling. I think he had to get his master's.
Well,
and then
yes, now I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, like within the last 100 years or so, I feel like, was it before you could just kind of like do it and that was it? You just
No, I don't know how he got through, because like this happened again with the final, the next headmaster after him. They did the same thing.
Okay.
They just made him an Anglican priest. So I don't know why they get away with it. Maybe because they were
hard to
in the
find
school
good principles or something. I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so he got involved. And so
it's like the movie Armageddon. Where they think it's easier to train a bunch of drillers to be astronauts than it is to train astronauts to be drillers. For some reason, astronauts, some of the most intelligent, resourceful people in the world, for some reason can't operate mining equipment.
That was the first question Ben Affleck asked Michael Bay too. He's like, wouldn't it be easier to train astronauts to be drillers? And he's like, shut up. That's not the movie.
I mean, I get it's not, but like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
exactly.
So these were a bunch of priests or teachers who got trained to be priests.
Yeah, basically he was, and then everybody else was just like lay teachers or whatever that were hired.
Frito-Lay teachers.
Frito-Lay, yeah, exactly. So the Community of Jesus was in Cape Cod, and it was founded by these two women they called the Mothers.
Oh.
Which is
like
creepy to begin
Frank
with.
Zappa and the Mothers.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
As Judy Sorensen and Kay Anderson. So they were very big on discipline, and that was one of the things. And they decided, okay, we're going to reach out to these people. And so these two women came in a Winnebago, came to the school, and they started helping kind of whip them into shape and make them a more disciplined school with more disciplined children.
So wait, they just drive around the country in a Winnebago, hanging out at schools, making sure everything is like up to their standards, and then they just leave?
No, like I think Charles Farnsworth reached out to them, and they came up. They drove up from Massachusetts.
Either way, like they reached out, or they're traveling around, but they still kind of just they drive around in a Winnebago. They park on the schoolyard, and they just live there until they can rehabilitate these things.
Basically, yeah,
that's wild.
And so one teacher told a story about how they got all the teachers together in a circle, and any women with long hair, they chopped off their hair so that it's like short hair.
Okay.
And
the parents were okay with this?
No, these were the teachers.
Oh, the teachers.
They did.
The teachers were okay with this?
Yeah.
What?
I know.
Fuck?
I know.
What?
I'd be like, oh, I'm out of here. I mean, I have told the story about the time I was forced to cut my hair. But yeah, it was like,
I'd be throwing hands.
Yeah. I don't know how, and I guess it's that brainwashing cult mentality, but like just right away to do that, that's where I'm like, no thank you.
Yeah, like at least lead into it for a little bit, right? Like take away our freedoms gradually.
Yeah.
Please.
Just to give a background a bit on the Community of Jesus, they started in 1958, so not too much before this. Kind of associated with the Episcopal Church, which would be like the Anglicans in America. They call them the Episcopals because you don't want to bow down to the Church of England if you're...
Those are the people who only eat fish, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Alien or whatever?
Pescatarian. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right. I get those two confused all the time.
Yeah, so and then they started this community, and I think it has about 255 people now, but they're like a charismatic version of the Episcopal Church. They did all the, Episcopal kind of teachings and stuff like that. And they also started promoting the idea of diet, discipline, and discipleship. So eating healthy and punishing people for their wrongdoing and, following the Lord. So the 3 Ds. Triple
That's
D.
Terrible. No, the triple D is diners, drive-ins, and dives.
Right.
Which is the opposite of whatever this is.
Yeah, it's true.
And I got to say, I would much rather follow Guy Fieri.
Yeah, but the Episcopal Church in Massachusetts was like, oh, no, they're not part of us. So they never actually officially were allowed to be part of them because they were two cults-like.
So they were fake Episcopal.
Yeah.
Pretending to be. They're posers pushing their bullshit agenda trying to get people to eat right and get disciplined, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. But
I mean,
then,
the eat right night thing, that's good, I guess.
yeah, but like not to the point where it's like you're beaten for gaining weight. But that didn't stop. So they helped GCC out, but GCC was still part of the Anglican Church, Anglican Diocese. They didn't really follow the Anglican Diocese of Ontario's like guidelines and rules unless they had somebody visiting from there, and then they would tell everybody to basically pretend how like they acted differently than they did.
So it's a fake Episcopalian helping a fake Anglican thing
Yep.
do terrible things to children.
Yep. Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And the teachers, I guess, too.
And the teachers,
Wow.
yeah. One teacher. So the story got picked up after they closed. So they closed in 2007. And that's when the Fifth Estate, which is a CBC News show,
Yep.
and the W5, which is CTV, both did stories about GCC. And both of them shed light on just how awful of an experience it was. My sibling worked there from, I think it was like 2003. I could be wrong on the dates, but from 2003 to 2005. So
Okay.
a couple
Wow.
years as a dorm parent. And this was after Charles Farnsworth had left.
So dorm parent, let's kind of just unpack that for a minute. Is that just like someone on staff who kind of chaperones the dorms kind of thing? Or
yeah, exactly. So they're there to make sure kids are in their bed at the right time and making sure that kids aren't doing awful things with other students. Basically, yeah, they're there. So when my sibling was there, it was under the new headmaster, and they had gotten rid of a lot of the old disciplinarian actions. Discipline actions. So they weren't as strict and they weren't as abusive. And like my sibling, they didn't really notice much as far as any of these kind of things. It was more before their time.
Yeah.
And it was also it was like a quarter of the amount of students it used to have at this point, and it was on its last leg and dying. And then as they were leaving, so they quit and then started getting messages and started talking to people about some of the abuses and things that happened at the school that they were unaware of while they worked there, and kind of started advocating for some of the students and letting them know that, I'm on your side.
Was it the students that were kind of reaching out, or were they hearing this stuff like secondhand from other sources?
No, it was like they found they were doing some Googling on the school, found a forum,
doing a little more research into
doing
it.
a little more research, and found this forum with former students, and then realized like the extent of it, and was like, holy shit, I'm glad I got out. And then they closed like right away after that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, let's talk about some of the accusations and abuses. The number one thing you'll hear about is something they call light sessions.
Light sessions? Like
light sessions.
GHT?
Yeah, like, because the idea was we're bringing things to the light, which was basically you get everybody together, you pick one person or you pick a few people, and you share their wrongdoing or their sin, and you shame them and punish them in front of the rest of the students. And sometimes this can be hitting them with a belt. Sometimes it can be just like verbal abuse, isolation. Like there was one story about 1996 that she was punished for, they found a note from a boy that was like a nice note, not even a love note, just like, I think you're a cool person, and dating was strictly forbidden.
Yeah.
So she wasn't allowed to talk to any other students. She had to eat separately from them. She wasn't allowed to attend classes for a while. She wasn't allowed to wear the school uniform, and nobody was allowed to talk to her. Another one was a guy peed his bed, because this is K to 12. So this is kindergarten to K-12.
Yeah, so that's a very wide range of people, right?
Yeah. And I think he was older, but like still, had a bedwetting issue.
Yep.
Which some
kids
do.
I mean, especially in an environment like this, right? I think if anything, it's only going to exacerbate those issues.
Exactly. Actually, yeah, there was a couple stories about bedwetting. So one was they made the kid just sleep in urine for days, and he got really sick.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, and another one was they put his mattress in the dining area and made him stand in front of it with holding a soother and a rattle.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and so like the pee stained mattress, and he's standing there with the soother and the rattle, and that's his punishment for peeing his bed.
When was this?
This was in the 90s.
In the 90s?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Oh my god. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
this is bad anytime, but
Yeah.
the 90s is very, like, that's so recent.
Yeah, it's true.
That's crazy.
And another one was, I think it was the same guy. He was very new to the school, and he started talking in his sleep, which is, I guess, a punishable crime according to them.
What?
And yeah, so he got his dorm parent, not my sibling, punched him in the balls to wake him up. I may be confusing the story, but he was forced to, yeah, I think that was the guy who was forced to clean the bathroom, and then the dorm parents started peeing on him.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and it was just like these big humiliation things that were supposed to make these kids better members of society or some shit like that.
Yeah, let's psychologically and physically abuse children. That'll make them better members of society. Also, like punishing someone for talking in your sleep, something you have absolutely no control over. Exactly. But I'm also like, what was his dorm parent doing? Just kind of like creeping into people's rooms and listening around?
Yeah.
Like what were they doing there?
Because I visited a lot when my sibling was working there.
Yep.
And
they were always creeping. They got quiet shoes.
They had a different apartment from the dorms, so they would have to go in and like check on the kids and make sure that, you know, if something did happen, that they were available if they were on shift. Right. But they had their own apartment. It wasn't like they were living in the dorms with the kids. They were off like in another part of the building. So that dorm parent must have been just creeping. Yeah.
Like that's what's really wild about it. I don't know.
Like unless they changed that rule after or before my sibling got there, and maybe he was living in the dorms, but still like
the headmaster heard about it and was like, listen, if you're gonna pee on the kids, don't like creep on them while they're sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah. And they also believe that parents' love for their children was like idolatry. It prevented them from disciplining them properly. So, which, you know, makes sense for a boarding school. I mean, it does make sense, but
guess.
But also children of staff got free tuition. So teachers, their kids would be allowed to live there, but they were forbidden from talking to their own children while like they live there. So even though they taught at the same school, they weren't allowed to interact with their own children at all. If you tried to have any sort of relationship with your kid while you were working, then you were disciplined as a staff member, and your kid was disciplined as a student.
I mean, wow. I mean, I appreciate the, you know, keeping the work and private life separate. I think that's important. But not acknowledging each other at all, like that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's insane. There was one story. Okay, so Charles Farnsworth and then his son Robert. Robert's still just out and about, walking around Brockville, just living his life in Brockville. Total child molester, as was Farnsworth. Farnsworth, one story was that as like the kids would come through and shake his hands after like the morning mass on Sundays, he would just grab the girls' boobs. He'd just be, "Oh, good morning," and like give them a little fondle, I guess. And he was very big, and a lot of the staff throughout the years were big on like calling girls whores and calling them Jezebels and anything that like, if you're being too tempting to the other kids, like everybody's in the same uniform,
right? But also victim blaming. It's wild because I was gonna say like, what are the other teachers doing? But obviously they're of the same ilk, the same kind of just shitty, abusive, manipulative people who, you know, want any opportunity where they can kind of exert their authority and power over someone under them, right?
Yeah. And so in the Fifth Estate, there was one teacher who was very apologetic. It was the guidance counselor, and she didn't Her daughter was going there too, and they basically like emotionally abused both of them and used them against each other, and it really messed up her relationship with her daughter. And she's the only one really that's speaking out for the victims.
Right.
She's the only one that's and all the other teachers are just kind of
Radio
avoiding
silence.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
What's
I don't want to say I understand it, but I also, it's just like, yeah, shut the fuck up. No one wants to hear what you have to say, whatever your lame excuses for, condoning this environment of child abuse.
Yeah, exactly. Gordon Mintz was one of the teachers there, and he's the one who, after Charles Farnsworth left, he was made headmaster, and he was also made a priest. So he started working there as a maintenance person, and then became a teacher, and eventually headmaster.
How does that work? How do you go from?
I don't know.
Did he go to school? Did he actually get an education, or is it?
I think he did. I think it says he went to Wycliffe here in Toronto.
Okay, because if he didn't, I'm like, whoa. You don't just get promoted from maintenance man to teaching children.
One story of him is there was this one student who the teachers decided he was too effeminate, so they had to make him a man. And so they started a boot camp program with him, and would make him get up at 4:30 in the morning for exercises, and then just push him way too far. And the kids started throwing up, and he's like, good, now you know it's working. And he had to do this every day for a number of months to man him up,
right?
Because he was too artsy, I guess.
Right.
And and then Sam, my sibling, was saying that when they worked there, Charles Farnsworth wasn't working there anymore, but he still had full access to the school. So Farnsworth would just come in, just walk around, and do whatever he did, and he was just a disgusting.
He just had an open door policy to all these vulnerable children. Great. Yeah. And this person is still just no consequence at all, kind of living their life.
Well, Charles Farnsworth is a dead guy now.
Right,
he died in 2015.
Well, fuck, who cares?
But his son, who was just as bad as him, is still walking around, no charges. OPP have been awful. So the Ontario Provincial Police had a couple cases open against them and then just closed them. It's fine. The victims did win a lawsuit though, I think in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a joint lawsuit. It's hard to get anything now because it's not a organization anymore,
right?
But they did name the Community of Jesus in Massachusetts in the lawsuit, and so there was some backlash there. So they won the lawsuit, so that is a good step.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say how much. I don't know the Anglican diocese. I don't think they have to pay much at all, which is a shame because they should be held just as responsible.
Yes, I mean, talking about the difficult thing with a lot of these things is that it can be hard to really have definitive evidence for a lot of the stuff other than people kind of saying their things. So I get the difficulty in doing that, but I am not surprised by the police failing in their investigations of these things at all. I mean, it's depressingly, again, they're most of the time they're not actually there to protect people. They're there to protect, property and money more than anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And so and anytime I met Charles, we always thought he was just this wise old man, this wise priest, and he would he was so composed and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it wasn't all. I'm going to read a story a guy wrote. Oh yeah, okay. So this guy, it was from Toronto Life magazine.
Mm-hmm.
He was a student at GCC in the 80s. So he met him in 1980, and he says, "We met with Farnsworth in this school cafeteria. He was a short, angry, small man with greasy black hair and a pronounced Georgia drawl. He wasn't particularly articulate. I remember even at my young age being surprised that this person could be the headmaster of such impressive school." And it goes on to say that the reason his mom wanted him to go there was because he asked if he could get some blue jeans, and his mom thought that was a sign of rebellion.
Oh no, I'm wearing blue jeans right now.
Not me.
Probably going to heck, right?
Mm-hmm. Probably going straight to.
So you thought this doofus that this guy in the 80s said was a mush-mouthed dipshit. You thought he was this sagely old man?
Yeah. So I don't know if he got better.
He just was better at tricking you,
or if he got better at tricking us, or if I was just a dumb kid. It could be a combination.
Little column A, little from column B. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And the other thing too is in 1989. So like this is years ago. A guy for a reporter for our local newspaper, the Recorder and Times, and it's so local that I've been in it so many times. It's
for what?
Because they just they would take a picture of our Christmas play.
Okay, I was gonna say because I mean you've already led in this whole episode with the arson and then the harassing and driving someone off the road. So I thought maybe you had done something wild and reckless that deserves to be in the paper.
No, I won a art contest. On Sundays they would do an art contest for kids under 10. So I would just I would doodle something and send it in because I wanted the $10 prize.
$10. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still have the winning submission, or?
I actually do.
Do you actually?
Because my parents saved it, and a couple years ago they just gave me they're like, "Oh, here we have all this stuff," and that was in there. So the original drawing and the article with
That's pretty good.
In 1989, this journalist from the Recorder and Times wrote a whole article about it and did a lot of in-depth research about all the abuse that was going on. And the paper shut him down. They're like, we can't handle if we get sued or whatever. We can't handle the lawsuits. And because it was like a family run, it's one of the oldest newspapers in Canada. But
I understand that. Like, there's a lot of tricky things with. Is that slander or libel?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Because one is written and one is like spoken, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those ones. So I feel like it's something like, unless you're like a large newspaper who can kind of fight that.
Yeah.
It might be a tricky sell, but
yeah, it just sucks that they could have been called out so much earlier. I don't know what would have been done. I mean, if you watch the Woody Allen versus Pharaoh documentary of Woody Allen, it's like, oh, he was called out that long ago and still just kept making movies. But so you don't know. Yeah. But
I mean, that's so many of these monsters, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it also makes me wonder, like, who did I know personally who knew that this stuff was going on? Because I went to like a big church that really supported this school, and I knew people who were involved in it and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't know, but that's another thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you also have to kind of like decide, like, well, not decide, but kind of parse through how many people were complicit in it and how many people were just so, I don't want to say deluded, but you know what I mean? Yeah. They drank the Kool-Aid so much that it wasn't on the radar.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that justifies it or makes it right in any way, but there's a certain amount of kind of like head in the sand to it.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm just reading through Sam, my sibling's notes. And actually the Anglican Church says that Farnsworth was never ordained. Oh, no. Okay, that was their claim because they wanted to avoid the abuse, but documentation has come out to show that neither of those claims are true. Okay, so yeah, no, he was ordained. They just tried to deny it after the fact.
Oh, those fucks.
Yeah.
Those greasy fucks.
Yep. Yeah. They also claimed that they were not aware of any of abuse at the school, but there were, So, a lot of times, they would send complaints.
Holy shit.
Yeah, complaints were ignored by the diocese. Complaints were ignored by the school. Yeah, it was just all these complaints were
A church
ignored.
ignoring complaints about
Yeah.
abuse. Huh.
Yeah, and
Huh.
yeah. And 23 people were interviewed by the OPP and no charges were ever laid. When Sam was there, they still had housing for former staff members, which meant that former cult members were just living in around the school. And I don't know if they had. Sam bought a trench coat, and
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. The Matrix was cool.
No, I get it. I understand, but
and they were walking around with this trench coat, and one of the old ladies from the cult came up and said that it was an evil jacket, and that it was giving off very evil vibes, and that they need to get rid of it. And they're like, "It's just a jacket. It keeps the rain off me." And they're like, "No." And then a little while later, it was just missing from their apartment.
From the apartment,
They went into their apartment and stole
Whoa.
the jacket.
I like to imagine this like crazy old lady in front of the mirror wearing the trench coat, being like, "I look good.
Yeah.
I'm so evil." Wow.
Yeah. So like, they were insane. So Community of Jesus, they just say that they were involved in 1973 just shortly to help them get set up, but they weren't really involved and the abuse isn't their fault or whatever. But they would also send their troubled kids to this school. So throughout the years.
Oh, so it was like a feeder course for them. They would just drop people off, but they're not involved.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very hands off.
Yeah. And Gordon Mintz then went on. So he had that shady ordination. So that was Sam's boss, but he had that ordination. And then he was hired by the Canadian Armed Forces as as a chaplain, and then eventually became like the head chaplain of all the training for chaplains in the Canadian Armed Forces, even after all these abuse claims came out. They just retired last year. In December, so just a couple months ago, they finally retired. And like the article I'm seeing here just says after reports of abuse, but there have been reports of abuse since like 2005 that were known. So I don't know.
Well, again, it's back to institutions like this, the church, the military, the police, things like this, where they're positions of authority and power, just like filled with abuse and horrible people.
Yep.
And all that shit just gets swept under the rug and ignored because for whatever reason they know the right people or they have the right amount of money or some shit. It's insane. And there's so many people who are so like, they're so caught up in what it is that, they can do no wrong, or it's so gross.
It is.
There's no accountability. There's no, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's such a problem with so many of these institutions, and it's really gross that, they have to protect themselves.
Yeah. It's so gross. And, just a quick story that I just remembered from the Fifth Estate. One thing Charles Farnsworth would do is pull kids into his office and tell them about when he was a kid, he was molested by his camp counselor, and he realized later that it was his own fault, and he's been asking God for forgiveness and stuff for this sin that he tempted his counselor or whatever. And this was his way to groom kids to then be molested by him. So he was,
right.
Yeah. And he was.
So, fuck. Is this, was he actually molested, or is this just part of a story?
I don't know.
If he wasn't, that's really fucked up. If he was, that's a cycle of abuse that I think a lot of clinical psychologists talk about that a lot, about how oftentimes a lot of pedophiles and people in these kind of sexual abuse kind of situations were also abused as children, and that really kind of colors how they proceed down the line. So, both ways are really fucked, right? Like it doesn't matter what's true or what's not, but the fact that that's how this person was grooming children is insane.
On the Fifth Estate thing too, this guy came up as they were reporting outside the empty school, and he lived nearby. And he started telling them that all the abuse allegations were bullshit. There was no witnesses. And the reporter was like, that's usually the case with sexual abuse. There aren't witnesses, but there's been multiple people who've come forward. And then it turns out that this was Charles Farnsworth's youngest son. So not Robert, who also did this stuff. It was
one of the kids, though, still denying it.
Yeah, his son, Donnie. And then I was talking to Sam about this, and they said that what happened was after this, one of Donnie's friends saw him on the Fifth Estate, emailed Donnie and was like, how dare you say there's no sexual assault? I was sexually assaulted by your father and your brother. And he's like, oh, he just all of a sudden believed this woman. He's like, I always had suspicions about my brother, but I've always just, in my mind, I just denied that my dad had any wrongdoing, and I just couldn't admit. And he finally, like, in this email admitted, like, I may be a piece of shit. And the email ended up going like public and stuff. I don't know if he wanted it to, but he did apologize to her, and he did say, I'm going to try to be better and more believing. But I don't know, that could just be something he said to her, but still, like, yeah.
I mean, I understand. I can understand that kind of disbelief with it, and that denial.
Yeah.
I think that's a fairly like natural response to something like that for some people, you know.
Yeah.
Not to say that makes it right, but I think it. I kind of get that, especially after the fact, like hearing someone who was actually a victim kind of reach out to them, and then them kind of being like, oh, maybe it is true, right?
Maybe I'm the baddie. Yeah.
Wait a minute, are we the baddies?
Yeah, exactly. Am I the drama? Yeah. So all in all, it's a sad situation. It's good that they won that lawsuit. There's some closure there. I wish that it could have been prevented altogether, obviously, but that's with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I think we just scratched the surface here. A lot of allegations, a lot of abuse, and I'm glad the place is closed. I'm glad it's, not doing anything, and it's a good thing that Charles Farnsworth isn't around anymore. And
I agree.
Yeah, but let's just get Robert off the streets.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
which is it's the same as all these, like, they just get shuffled. They just get moved to a different county or a different province or whatever. Right.
Right.
It's not our problem anymore. It's someone else's problem. I don't. It's such a bizarre. I don't get it. I don't get, like, I think all that's doing is just making you look like a bigger piece of shit. If you're in that organization and you call someone out for it and you take care, like you deal with these people in an appropriate manner, they're fired, they're convicted of whatever, they're sued, whatever, they're removed from these situations where they can continue abusing people, then I'm not looking at your organization and thinking like, what a piece of shit. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, they're actually taking steps to address these problems, and they're trying to get rid of these people who are abusing, minors or whatever else. Yeah. Instead, they seem to just be doubling down and making it infinitely worse by showing like, no, this isn't just an individual. This is a systemic structure that we condone, we endorse, and we perpetuate by doing these kind of things.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's so fucked. And I mean, I guess the only way that you could really explain it is that the people in the people in power are also doing these things, and that's the only reason that they would do that, really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see what else would be an explanation for it.
Yeah, and it's like, there's, we get allegations from here, we get allegations from here, and it's like, oh, I didn't believe this one. And then, so if I believe this one, it's going to look like I allowed it to happen because I didn't believe that last one. So let's just not believe this one too. And it's like, you're building up this like thing. You're only thinking of yourself, and you're only thinking of protecting yourself. And you're supposed to be this organization that's, helping the future, and you're bettering, the kids of tomorrow, but
But that's such a flawed way of looking at it too, though. Like that's, that's like saying like, well, someone gives you a glass of orange juice in the morning. It's like, I don't believe that's orange juice.
Yeah.
And they keep giving you one and you're like, I don't believe that's orange juice. And then you finally realizing like, yes, that is in fact orange juice.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we get that you were wrong, but you realized, oh no, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And going forward, now you know, and you can deal with it appropriately.
Yeah.
But to just like keep doubling down on it is
yeah.
Whether you think you look bad, you just look worse.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's bullshit. Yeah.
But fuck these people.
Fuck these people. And if there was a hell, there's a special place for them.
Yeah.
But there's not a hell.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the one thing about being like a non-believing atheist is the sad part, not knowing that all these horrible, horrible people will never receive any kind of punishment for the shit that they do.
Yeah, I've been watching the show Severance, which is a fantastic show. But the one character, I think it was Patricia Arquette plays, says my aunt was an atheist, and she told me once that the good news is hell is just something made from man's imagination. The bad news is men are pretty good at making their imaginations a reality. And that's kind of, they did that with Grenville Christian College.
There you go.
Hell for those kids. But let's move on and let's get a happier note and thank our wonderful patrons.
Oh my God! Wow! Thank you so much. Wow. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to our Bible study. We have so many Bibles to study today. We have a plethora of Bibles to study. Everybody brought 5 with them today, and we have to study all of them.
Yes. Here, Trevor, I just want to give you one of these holy lozenges. You're sounding particularly husky today.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. But before that must be what it is. I'd just like to thank our good friends George and Sophinis and Stacy and Michelle and Mumakaru and Venable and Izap.
And I want to give a huge, huge thank you to Claire. And I also have a prayer request for Claire. You see, Claire is a very, very nice person, most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the other day, somebody spelled their name without the E at Starbucks. There's an E at the end. They spelled it without the E. And let's just say nobody got out of that Starbucks unscathed.
Right.
And I would just lift Claire up in prayer as they go through the, the court proceedings and all that stuff, and just hope for the best.
Right. And I actually have a prayer request for our friend Jennifer. Me and all the boys and girls were down at the local McDonald's the other day, and it just so happened to be a Friday, so of course we were all ordering our filet of fishes, our double filet of fishes, and
fish on Friday.
Jennifer walked up to that counter, and I swear to the Lord that she ordered a 10-piece McNugget meal with a poutine, and on a Friday, and listen, I know it's hard not to get those chicken nuggies with a good dip sauce, but Jennifer, it was a Friday, and I just want you to be more aware of the days of the week. So if we can just give a little prayer for Jennifer, and maybe get her a date book so she knows what day of the week it is.
It's true. Amen. And I just have a quick prayer request for Unoriginal TAC. And I just want to lift them up in holy prayer for. Actually, we were at Tim Hortons the other day, and they ordered a double, but they thought that meant 2 coffees, and got really upset because they're not from Canada. They didn't know what a double was, so they just heard somebody else say that and say, "I want a double." And then they get 1 coffee, and they're like, "Where's my other coffee?" And then the person's like, "Well, why don't you just Google what a double is?" So they Googled what a double was, but there was no Wi-Fi in the Tim Hortons, and it was still trying to connect. Like, there was no internet, but there was Wi-Fi, so it was like connecting to the. And anyways, it was a really frustrating moment for just everybody involved. And so, just want to lift up all the staff and as well as an original TAC.
And I want one more prayer request for that Tim Hortons employee whose customer service was so bad that rather than explaining what a double-double was, they told them to look it up.
Just Google it. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've ever been to a Tim Hortons before, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, that's true. I don't go often. So.
One time I went, it was just a true story, and I took a bite out of my hash browns, and it was freezing cold, like ice. It was an ice stick, and it was obviously like they just didn't deep fry it. They just took it out of the freezer and handed it to me. Just a mix up on the line, whatever. And so I told them, I was like, hey, this is cold. And they're like, oh, sorry. And then just put it like that I had bitten out of it on the conveyor belt that like all the other food goes on to heat up. And I'm like, oh, that's gross. And now I don't want it. Thank you.
Oh man.
And then I burned that place down.
Oh, that's fun. Nice.
But that's not what this Bible study is about.
No, it's about
transitioning
the Bible.
into the Bible and transitioning to our Christian rock lyric.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Can't you see you're not making Christianity better? You're just making rock and roll worse.
So, Damien, let's go from one piece of shit to another piece of shit.
Right. 2 Dookies in 1 episode.
2 Dookies in 1. This is by a fella name of, or a band name of Skillet.
We've talked about Skillet before, right?
Yes, but that episode was never released, so we actually have it.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't we release that one? Sorry.
That one was because I left the fish tank running the whole time, and it sounded awful.
Okay, well, either way, we talked about it before.
Yeah.
Whether people know that we've talked about it is irrelevant.
Yeah, so the singer...
The fact is
we're
talking about it now.
The singer's a guy named John Cooper. I've talked about him in my videos before. He's
John Cooper Mellencamp.
John Cooper Mellencamp. I used to love Skillet. Like, I thought they were a great band back in the day. And in retrospect, they weren't. But...
I'm sorry. What kind of music are these guys again? Because this is immediately making me think like metal or hard rock.
Yeah, it's like, it's not metal. It's not necessary. It's harder rock. It's like, they would probably say they're hard rock.
Alt rock?
Yeah, like an alt rock. Like a kind of a little heavier alt rock. They're not like a punk band or anything. They're still like
well, that's punk. Punk's not alt rock. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's different.
They're not like a metal band.
Yeah,
they're not like.
No, I got you. I got you.
John Cooper, I think, recently has been railing against deconstructing and how it's so hip and cool for people to deconstruct their faith, and like he's just kind of a douchebag, and he's very conservative and very against cancel culture and things like that.
I find it's so funny that people think that people actually looking at the facts and realizing that they don't believe in God is some weird fad that the kids are just kind of latching onto.
And this song is a newer song by them. It's called "Surviving the Game."
Okay.
To be more than a conqueror, you have to learn to enjoy the pain. If you want to survive the game, you have to defeat me, beat me. You don't know it's the pain. They'll feed me. And I'm going to take back what you took before because I was born for this. All the bones that you're breaking. You pretend you're the one that can save me. And now I'm taking it back. It was never yours. I'm fighting for my focus. Blah, blah, blah. It's all about, you can hurt me, but I'm going to be stronger.
I mean, I feel like this is pretty just like standard hard rock from like the early 2000s kind of song.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not getting super like Jesus-y vibes from it, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like it's a bit like this is a song that you'd probably hear and you'd be like, well, this is a lame hard rock song, but it's still a bit of a bop.
Yeah.
But then you find out that they're super Christian. You're like, oh shit. Okay, never mind. Yeah. We're not listening. This is out of the rotation.
Yeah. Well, the song I really liked by them back in the day was a song called "Locked in a Cage," and it goes, "I want to be locked in a cage. I want you to break my legs," and it's all about how fighting against like the flesh and fighting against sin. So in order to avoid sinning, I want you to lock me in a cage and break my legs so that I can like not do bad things. Yeah.
I guess I'm just more like, why is this urge so bad that you need to be locked in a cage and have your legs broken?
Yeah.
Like shouldn't we be looking at, so you have a divine all powerful being who made it so that you have to deal with these urges that are so hard to overcome that you need to be confined and crippled. Like what?
And it's late 90s, so it's probably like they're trying to avoid looking at like the Sears catalog or whatever. That's what those are my temptations at the time.
Well, they had VHS tapes, I'm sure. They were a band.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They could afford a VHS tape.
That's true. Yeah.
Of softcore pornography, I'm assuming.
Yeah. This is I'll check again with my sibling if I can tell this story. But we were reminiscing the other day about the time that they rented a video that had like, it was just a movie, but it had like some nudity in it. And my dad got so mad that he like went back to the video store and just like yelled at the guy behind the counter. And the guy behind the counter's like, "I'm sorry, how old is your kid?" And he's like, 16. And he's like, and he's not allowed to rent this? Like, the guy was just in shock. Like, we're allowed to rent the 16-year-olds. It's the law. I don't know what to say.
Wow.
Yeah. But, yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is don't send your kids to a cult school.
Yeah, do your best not to. Keep them away. That's not good. So don't do it.
We love you, and we hope you have a wonderful time today.
Yeah, and tomorrow too. Yeah. Not the day after, but the day after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope 3 Tuesdays from now, you find your glasses.
Yeah.
If you lost
them. Amen.
Amen. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Work, Sky Moon.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network.